Hello, my name's Emily and I'm with Yesterday's Stash, and today I wanted to talk to you about a project that I've been working on with Tim Holtz products. I happened upon this piece of fabric and it was called Memento or Mementa, and it's a bunch of tickets, but it also has some flowers interspersed. And I really liked the pattern, so I thought, well, I'll get it. And then I got home and I realized that I also had the paper pack called Memoranda, and that's what this is called, Memoranda. Sorry about that. And this paper pack is one that he has had out for some time, but it also is pretty full of tickets, and it's got numbers, and it's got that what looks sort of like a bingo card that is on the here, and then he's got a couple of nice floral patterns in here that I liked. Here's one of them. It's kind of a mustard color, and then this one has got sort of a blue flowers in it. So as you can see, this is my second book making out of this. Using the materials of Tim Holtz that I already have, and plus the fabric and the paper pack. So the name of the book is called Reminisce, and I am using some of the fabric as the cover for the book, and the book is just really thick. I just kind of got where I wasn't sure what to do, because but I'm just going to say that whoever purchases this book can certainly pull out some of the things. I've put quite a few inserts in here that could easily be taken out, but I also didn't want to get away. I wanted to use as many of Tim Holtz's papers that I could. So this book is 9.5 by 6.25, and it is about 35 or so pages. Times 2 makes 70, and I focused on putting a lot of texture into the book, and everything had to have 3D kind of a surface, and I think that's part of the problem, was that I used too much 3D, and that made it too thick. But and also the pages, all of the pages come from the Memento pack, plus I used a heavy craft paper for others, so that this particular sheet of paper is just really thick. I also used some of my, I've been working on little tiny projects that you like little hand embroidery or little flowers or something like that, and I threw some of them in there. So as we go through the book, I will point out those things and the things that are in some of Tim Holtz's ideology products. This is three signatures, and it's just chocked full of things. This is a 3D tag that I made using the back side of a floral, kind of a brick colored floral paper pack piece of the one of the paper sheets in the packet. And then I put some stickles right here, and then did some stenciling. And then I put in several sheets of a note kind of a paper that has a coffee on it, so you can sit down with your coffee and make your list. So I also used leather as part of the texture in the book. So a lot of the pages have the texture of the leather in it, where I was able to sew that in. So the inside of the book is also the fabric from the Memento, and the back side is also. So it's got quite a bit of the fabric in it. So in keeping with texture. I also sewed a kind of a brick colored decorative thread around this, giving it more of a 3D appearance. This is more of the, what it says here is list. And this is, I took a piece of strip of fabric and sewed across the page, and then just put a paper clip here to sort of hold, to keep the pages intact. And then these pages here that are used for journaling are pages that come from making certificates or a resume sort of quality paper. And the weave of this kind of paper goes crosswise, 2 different directions. And so that it does, even though the paper is thin, it's like 24 pound, it is thick enough that you can, you know, easily write on it. This, I also really enjoy looking at magazines and pulling out projects. So, of course, since he likes numbers, I put that on here. And one of the things that I did use quite a bit of is his two of the 3 of his Compendium of Curiosities. There's volume 1, and there's volume 1 doesn't have a 1 on it, and then a volume 3, but I don't have volume 2. But these are just the most interesting books that he actually had. It's very easy to read. He writes out some things in longhand, and he talks about the different tools that he has. He actually has different definitions. And then look at here. This is, he's really into putting decoration of keys, gears, you name it. And so I tried to utilize as many of those as I could find in the book. But what he says here in this book, I think it's really interesting. He says, the next few pages are ideas of random gatherings of my artful thoughts. Give yourself the inventive freedom to try new things and think outside the box. So that's just really, I really thought that was interesting. And here again is more of his, this is not your typical flowers, and he has, one of his collections has these flowers that he has gone in and they're metal, and he's gone in and decorated them. And then he talks about tags, sticks, and tokens, and the corner areas, and words. He loves to have words in his books, and this is one of his. He has one of these little bronze tag sets that is of numbers and one of letters, and he's got several others. Those, and then one that has philosophy on it, which I can show you those. He also loves spinners. So anyway, this is I'm only going to show you the one book because the second one I don't want to take too much time talking about that, but it's called A Compendium of Curiosities, and the ones that I have are volumes 1 and 3. So again, using these kinds of pictures, the gears, the numbers, those sorts of things. This is just a piece of card, like file folder paper, and I used that wool where you do felting, and I found a couple of balls of that at my thrift store, and so I used that. And then this is an interesting concept that I ran across. Let me take this out. What I did here was I took this what is called Lumiere. It's by Jacquard Lumiere, and it's these little it's a smooth sort of metallic paint. And so what I did was, I took it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick something in here, so I don't know that you could see it from here, but I took it and put it on transparency paper. And transparency paper is what we used back in the day when we used to use transparencies for overhead projectors in the classroom. And this is where I just took and did a bunch of kind of random artwork on the, here's one that I did that I didn't use because it was basically, it was the first one I did. And it's so random that it's almost too random. But it gave me an idea of the different colors and how they would come out on the transparency paper. So I used that in several places because I thought that it would show, continue to show how we can use upcycling different items to, and I found this whole pack of transparency paper, transparency film, and it is, 50 sheets for $1. So, using them up for different things. And the 2 tags that I have to go with this are textured tags. They have trim on them. So I did some, not exactly Franken pages, but I sewed down and I just joined together lots of different, my thrift store has a lot of different trims like this, or I guess that you would put a trim on the bottom of a pair of curtains. So anyway, I did that, and so they're kind of thick, and I used a gold paper to use underneath them. So that is what that is. I'm not gonna take these out for right now. And these are a lot of the paper that I used. I cut, and these are the bottom sheets of it. And I kind of like that mustard and brown look. And so then I have a couple of postcards in here that are from Georgia, the state of Georgia, and they're vintage of old buildings, or the way it looked, and the way Georgia's, some of the towns looked in time gone by. Here's an example of where I did just a very simple kind of what we call a doodle stitch on here, and I did it on muslin, and then put a little bit of aged mahogany on it just to give it a little look, faded sort of a look. But you can get books like this, the Plant Lady embroidery, and I'm learning how to make what I'm making right now is very simple, but this book particularly is a little more complicated, but it has good directions and good ideas, and simple to follow just by looking at the colorful pictures. You can sort of do it without having to have a pattern if you put it on muslin. Now, if you put it on Aida cloth, that would be a different, kind of a different, it would look a little slightly different. And I'll show you what I did with that. So here's some more of those pages. Here's a set of, 2 sets of gears. This is where I took and made little snippets and did some hand embroidery on the snippet. And it's just taking, pieces of fabric and joining them together and then cutting them apart and then putting a zigzag stitch on either side of them, and then adding a little embroidery on the edge of it. This is paper that I tore out of a old scrapbook, and it's handmade, and it can be used for journaling as well. I have those 2 pages, and this is the other side of that long file folder, And here's some more of the journaling pages. And then this is where I took, I did a video recently of taking a juice extractor filters and using that for adding texture to different projects. And so here's where I added texture to one of the pages in the book. And here's a couple of different stationaries that can be pulled out and used. And it's actually of Williamsburg, Virginia, from the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation. And I grew up in Virginia, so I'm definitely into that history. And here's an example, and I've got a couple of those, of his ideology. This particular one is called Crowded Attic Salvage Stickers. And you can tell that I've used quite a bit of them. But this is that. That is an example of where I added a little bit of adornment. And then here's one of his bronze number little label that he loves to put on, and I put them on with ball pens. And then this is an example of how you can use that paper just over plain white paper. If you cover it with that juice extractor filter, then you can come up with kind of a nice aged look on that. And then here's one that is a timepiece. That is one of the tags that belong in his book, in his Memento. Here is an example of a couple of pictures of found relatives, which is a deck of cards, and he also has a deck of cards for, I think, paper dolls, and just several decks of cards are one of the things that he has in his collection. And also this is some stamps that I'm just sticking in here that can be used as stickers. And then this is a pocket that I put using ribbon, and this is an example of one of the flowers that he's talking about. He says it doesn't really look that much like a flower because it doesn't have, frill on it, but that is an example of his flowers. And then this is an example of his where he has his philosophy tags, and his philosophy tags are the ideology, and there's all kinds of words to go that you can use in the books. I have just found a couple here on my desk that have, this one has simplify, imagine, artful, destiny, just different things like that, different sayings. So I used that on this page where I did some stenciling, and that used jute, I can't say, burlap. Yeah, I used burlap for that. But the interesting thing about using this thick craft paper is that you can write or do or collage or glue or just whatever on one side, and then the other side isn't affected, by it. So here's another example of what we call a doodle stitch, and that's just where you do what we call the back stitch, and you just do it around on a piece of muslin. So moving along here, I've got several different tags, and this is an example of where I made a pocket with burlap and some fabric that kind of complements the colors in the book, and so lots of different textures on that. And then here's some memo, and then here's a piece of stationery, and then I ran across an interesting deck of cards that had wine tips and tricks on it, and I thought, these will be neat. So the whole set has information about, you know, if you're into wine. If not, you can just put it in somebody else's book. Here's an example of where I did a 3-leaf clover with Aida cloth, A-I-D-A. And then here's an example of other tags. I ran across this huge book, but it has interesting pictures. They're all in black and white. But on one side is a picture, and then on the other side is a story about the picture. And it's just an interesting something to read. I always like to include just a tiny little something or bit of education in my books. This is a set of several library cards that you can remove and use in other projects. This is a where I took lots of different fabrics and kind of, you know, sewed them together and made a pretty deep pocket out of it, and did it over top of a piece of the fabric, of the Memento fabric. And then here's where I took a glassine bag and made it into, I decorated it on the outside. And then this is a couple of pieces of note card that can be removed and used for something else. And then right here is a where I took this right here. This is what we call birch bark. And look at the different colors that come out of it. So I have a birch trees, river birch trees in my front yard. And so I just went and cut them out, pulled them off the tree, and then I took them and soaked them in water, and then took a brush and sort of brushed off the backside to clean it. And then I let them dry in the sun, and it just makes all different. You can do all sorts of different things with this, turning it, you know, collaging it, using it with other things. Actually, you could put, you know, even put a decorative color, glitter or something like that on it. But that is what is here. And it, let me take out this and just sort of show that. And then I actually put a piece, 3 pieces of seashells on the top of this, and it makes a pocket. But what I did was I put the pieces of river birch in between 2 pieces of the clear transparency, and used some of that juice extractor paper on either side of it to give it some character. And then these are tags from his wallpaper collection that I, you know, made. And then these are some postcards that come from a company called Oddballs. And my store, Oddballs is what it's called, my thrift store has just, somebody has really gotten rid of a lot of oddball products and taken it over there. And it's really interesting how it has all come, you know, come there. It's a little expensive, but that was only, those were only $1. So I've included several of the library cards in here. And here's another example of where I took a variety of different fabrics and joined them together along with newsprint, and put and a little bit of lace, and made a pocket out of that. And then this is where another sort of snippet, only it's not really a snippet, it's a heart shape that I've made. And I put a padding in between them, and then I did some hand stitching around it, and actually did a zigzag stitch around the outside edge. Here's another one of those flowers that he says they don't look really like flowers because they're made out of metal. And here's another one of those tags that I'm sticking here in this pocket that has one of those number symbols on it. And I kind of did a little bit of a collage on here. This is a stamp collage. I have tons of stamps, and I did put a little bit of glaze on it, And here's more of those numbers from his salvaged kit. More of the tags from the wallpaper. This one is also, and just extra tags added in to use for sticking pictures on, or for, but I put a little design, a little tiny 3D design on these. So, and then here's more of like a little collage where it has words on it and numbers, and using lots of different ways to highlight different elements that he likes in his work. And then this is the last page, and this is actually old embroidered. I did not do this. My ancestors did this. When we went through some of the drawers in the old home place, we found just like 20 squares of all kinds of old fabric that somebody had just sat and done needlework on. And so it was sewn up as a I guess you know, the squares for a quilt, and then they just went in and did this interesting stitch, I guess. I can't imagine taking something like that and putting it in a quilt. I just can't imagine it being something that I would enjoy having on my bed. So I have been using these in my journals. And then these are more of the timepieces and tags from Wildflower, and also from the Memento kit. So that is the book. And again, one wonders how it could be so thick. It's got burlap on the end. This is a page out of the book, and then this is has muslin underneath it, and then it is has felt. I mean, not felt, but burlap, and then I added did a quilting sort of a stitch on the outside to make the book. So thank you for watching. Just found this to be so much fun to work on. I know after 2 books that I've made, the first one is the previous video is on timepieces, and this one is called Reminisce. And both of these will be for sale in my Etsy store, Yesterday's Stash. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you will like and subscribe to my channel. That would help a lot. So thanks again for watching, and we'll talk again soon.